All right, everybody. Good late morning or early afternoon. More defensive ends coming up. More day three guys, likely day three guys. Starting off with a very interesting one. This is a unique one. Gabe Hall of the Baylor Bears. And I think there's a thing with Baylor Bear defensive linemen. They don't usually work in the NFL, they don't usually pan out. So that's a bad start, but the measurables are very unique and very, I'd say, good. 6'6", only 291 pounds. So, first of all, he could add weight, right? If you're 6'6" and only 291, you can add weight without being like overly large. And you got 34.5-inch arms. That's really good too. 9.5-inch hands is whatever, but 6'6", 291, that's like Shelby Harris type stuff. So we're off to a good start there. The combine was mostly good too. The 40 was above average. The 10-yard split was good. Vertical was good. The broad jump was remarkable. 9'7". That's crazy. Three cone was average. 20-yard shuttle was average. But we're off to a good start with Gabe Hall, I think. Like, this looks like a guy who should be much higher in the draft than he is, but I could only find him on one of the major big boards actually getting drafted or having a draftable grade, CBS. PFF had him going undrafted. Now, the database is kinder. They have him in the fifth round, but clearly, for some reason, this unique blend of size and length and athleticism is not that desirable. And you look at 2023, he didn't really produce that much. He wasn't graded out well by PFF, 17 tackles, 3.5 for loss. 2022 was better, 37 tackles, 5.5 for loss, 4.5 sacks, but still not monster production or anything. It seems like there should be a little bit more for Gabe Hall. Now, there is some great stuff here. Don't get me wrong. And he hits with great pop coming off the snap. He's very explosive coming out of his stance. We like that. He understands leverage despite his extreme height. Like, there are going to be some guys that just get underneath his pads, and it's going to be tough for him to do anything about it, but he understands what he has to do to have a chance in that regard. And I think that's a positive. His length and his build are really desirable. Like, this is the kind of guy who, in a slightly different timeline, is going in the top 10, it feels like. He uses his hands well to maneuver through traffic. He pushes through traffic well. And you look at the way this guy plays, you look at the way he does things. I do think he would be a great fit as a 4-eye tech for a 3-4 defense. So if you're looking at things through the traditional lens of a 3-4, Gabe Hall actually makes a good deal of sense, I think. Now, some of the reasons why he's not a star yet are as follows. I mean, when you're 6'6" and 291 pounds, it's always going to be a little awkward for you to be working in the interior because you're just so lean, right? You don't have like the girth that you're typically looking for in the interior. His run defense, he gets pushed out of the play way too much. He gets dominated out of the play too often. And when you're built like this, it's hard to get around that. He doesn't have very much strength yet. He usually wins with his athletic ability and his hands. And while there's a lot that makes him intriguing, it's a projection. Like, he should be able to get better in these areas, but he hasn't yet. I don't know how old he is off the top of my head, but he's not there yet. It's all just a projection. So in theory, he's very appealing. He's got a lot of improvements to make if he wants to make it in the NFL. As it stands right now, it's just not happening. But fifth round flyer, sure. I don't think you can go too wrong with that. There's a very unique player in here somewhere for sure. All right, now we're going to do Justin Eboigbe of Alabama, the Crimson Tide. Another one of these Alabama defenders in a year where they didn't have as much going on as they used to, and it was felt a little bit thin for the Crimson Tide defense. Eboigbe was one of their better players, but still isn't projected to be anything over the top spectacular. 23 years old, 6'4", 297 pounds, 33 and 3/8-inch arms, 9 and 3/4-inch hands. Testing was not good. He did a 40-yard dash that was pretty bad. His acceleration is very bad. Vertical, 28 inches, pretty bad. So didn't test well. PFF and CBS have him in the fourth. ESPN, Draft Network, and Walter Football have him in the third. The database has him in the fourth, so he's hanging in around there. And I kind of feel like he's being artificially boosted a little bit because he played at Alabama and everybody knows him. He only has 1 year of significant production, although it was good. The production's there. 64 tackles, 11 and a half for loss, 7 sacks. I mean, those are nice numbers for an interior defensive lineman who's 300 pounds. 1 pass defensed and a really good PFF grade as well. So, Eboigbe, there's good stuff here. I'm not knocking him at all. There's definitely nothing to knock here. Well, there's some stuff to knock, but overall, this is a intriguing player. I think that he can fit in on any defense. I think he's got the strength and the ability to shoot gaps to be able to fit in on any defense, be it an even front or odd front. Hits with a big pop and generates bull rush off of that big pop. So he is actually able to collapse the pocket a little bit and generate pass rush, even though it's kind of just very mano a mano. He's got good, solid tackling fundamentals. He tackles well, doesn't miss a lot of tackles. He's got a nice, solid frame. Could add a little bit of weight to it if he needed to. So there's great stuff here. However, he doesn't have the athleticism that you'd like at the NFL level. Like I said, the testing numbers kind of tell the story here. He just doesn't have it. He's not strong enough to truly hold up at the point of attack. Like if you're trying to ask him to really hold a gap in the middle, if you're asking him to really just be able to hold up in the A gap or B gap to stop the run, then you're probably not going to get it the way you want to. The stack and shed game is lacking. He doesn't shed through blockers the way you would like, and his closing speed is just going to rob him of a lot of plays that most players would get. So he's kind of I don't know, it kind of feels like he's a high floor, low ceiling guy to me. He gives high effort at all times. He has good fundamentals in some areas. And there's a place in the world for players like that, but it feels like he does all that to overcome his lack of athleticism. And that's good enough to be in the league. And I feel like the hype, the third round, fourth round hype even, is kind of a product of him going to Alabama and having good numbers last year. Like to me, this is a fifth rounder. I think he's getting a little overhyped because of playing for Alabama, quite simply. I don't see any star potential here. I think I see a very milquetoast, run of the mill, rotational defensive end for a pretty good for just a pretty good defensive line rotation. That's really all I see. So Eboigbe, I like him, but there's just not the upside that I'm looking for here. There's a nice foundation though. So fifth rounder, fifth rounder. Okay, one more guy for this video. It's going to be Keith Randolph Jr., teammates with Jerzon Newton in Illinois. One of the pieces left over from that phenomenal 2022 defense in Illinois. 23 years old when the season starts. 6'3.5", 296 pounds, 32 and 3/4 inch arms, 9 and 7/8 inch hands. Tested not very well. Kind of slow on his 40-yard dash. Didn't jump all that well, so not very fast or quick or explosive. Uh, which could be okay. He is sub 300 though, so you'd like to see a little bit better. The big boards have him in like the 6th or the 7th, and then the aggregate has him in the 5th. So the aggregate actually likes him a little bit more. So some of these smaller big boards are pushing him up a little bit, I think. Been very productive the last 2 years. Over 100 tackles. Although, once again, we're going to keep coming back to this, right? Way more productive with the splash plays in 2022 than 2023. I don't know why it keeps happening. 13 tackles for loss in 2022 and then 4 in 2023. And a lot of the talent on Illinois was gone. And I understand that that made the defense a lot worse, but at the same time, you would think that other talented players being gone from your defense would allow you to get more stats. You would get to stat pad a little bit, and the overall ability of the defense would suffer. You wouldn't think that your stats would just die. So 4.5 sacks, 1.5 sacks last year, a pick, a couple passes defensed. PFF grade was really good in 2022 and then just okay in 2023, which isn't terribly surprising, I guess, when you consider the fact that the defense fell off a cliff. Keith Randolph Jr. was a team captain for the Fighting Illini. He's a good gap shooter. He plays with an understanding of leverage as well. He is a little bit on the taller side, but he understands how to win leverage. And the fact that he's in on so many tackles, given his position, is indicative of the fact that he has a nose for the ball, and he's good at using his hands to get off blockers and get to the ball carrier frequently. So that's good. Um, he's not much of an athlete overall, and while I do think he does a pretty good job at stacking blockers, he doesn't shed them that well. He can kind of keep them off of him, but once they get on him, it's hard for him to shed. He's not quick off the snap. He's very kind of lumbering off the snap. He's not going to be able to win any battles right at the moment the ball is snapped the way you would like. Still a pretty decent gap shooter though, actually, which is kind of an interesting combination. Overall, just not really going to be a pass rusher, and that can be okay, but you're not getting pass rusher upside from this guy, I don't think. So he's just kind of a classic backup caliber prospect. He should be in the NFL, but just as like a rotational run defender, early down defender. He's smart. He understands some technique of the stuff you got to do in the trenches. So nothing against him, but he's just kind of very plain. And there isn't a lot that I can say about Keith Randolph Jr. other than that he's good enough to play in the NFL. And I would call his number around the 6th round personally. I'd say 6th. Um, I think I liked Eboigbe a little bit more. I feel like Eboigbe has a little bit of a higher floor and probably a little bit of a higher ceiling too. I don't think there's anything close to resembling a high ceiling with Keith Randolph. All right, so that's it for this batch of defensive ends. We're going to do more at later today, and then we're going to move towards wrapping it up by the end of the day, moving on to other positions soon after. But let me know what you thought about this group. Let me know what you think of this crew. I will see you guys later today. Go Hawks, more videos coming. You guys know the drill, and thank you for watching.